back to Lessons Learned. I'm Sherry, and this is part 3 of the Twisting Spiral Heart FPP tutorial series. We have 2 other episodes, obviously, that tell us how to prepare ourselves for foundation paper piecing, or FPP, and how to construct this beautiful block. And just want to start out with a little bit of clarification on the beginning when you start to put your piece 1 and 2 together. I want to go ahead and show that to you with you seeing me so that we can make sure that we're completely on the same page on how to put this together. Now, if you're working with part B, your pieces should look exactly like this. First, your pattern will look like this. That's the front. We always sew on the front, and then on the back your pieces of fabric will be sewn down and facing upward once it's finished. So in other words, your entire heart pieces like this is the back of your paper. The getting started part is what's hard. Once you get those first 2 pieces on, you can usually just kind of fly with it. Not to say that I didn't have some mistakes along the way, and I'm sure, you know, most people who do this do have those mistakes. But I wanted to show you, I'm getting ready to start a new block with another of the Stonehenge surfaces and the basic hues from Patriotic, another color combination. And so here we are with our 2 pieces that need to go in 1 and 2. We're going to be sewing on this line. So on the back, you're going to want to have these 2 pieces facing each other, right sides together, just like you always do with your quilting. We're going to sit this on that number 2 line with a 1/4 inch extra or more, and we're going to sew that just like that. So I have my 2 pieces together here. We're going to sew on the line between 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and do that and then show you a little bit more about the cutting or the trimming of that seam line. Okay, so I sewed on the front from that little tip down to the edge and over the edge, because on the edges you can sew over across this line here. So now you can see that I have my 2 pieces how I had them laying before, but now they're sewn down. So the objective is to make sure that this covers the number 1 shape and this covers the number 2 shape. And you want to check that before you cut it, before you trim it down. So I can see that my number 1 piece is aptly covering my number 1 spot, and my number 2 piece is covering my number 2 spot. Okay, so this is how it should look. We're looking at the back of the paper right now, and the pieces that we just sewed together on the line on the front. I can take this pin out now, since they're secured down with stitches, and see that my number 1 background piece is completely covering that area. Yes, I have a lot of extra over here, but you want to have extra just in case, because with all these jagged edges, you just never know if you've got it in there or not. Now, if you lift this up above the seam that you just stitched, here's your number 2 part. So it is covering very well. Well, there it is right there. I don't know if you can see that line, but that's it right there. We're completely covered. We've got more than enough for a 1/4 inch right there. So that's how your B side should start. And then from there, you just do right sides together on the lines between the following piece. So we're going to sew on this one now and be able to cover this one with our 3rd color, or darker. I'll have a darker red to go in that number 3 spot because it has the heart on it, dark heart. So this will be like this and like this, you'll be putting your piece here to cover this. But for now, I want to show you how to trim this. Before, I was showing you how to use the add a quarter ruler by bumping it up to the seam line, which does work, but it does want to slide. So what you can do is just grab your seam lines, like I showed you in the previous video. Just go ahead and fold that, even though we're not dealing with this part yet. Turn it to the paper side that's folded, and you have a nice ridge there to grab that add a quarter. So now all we need to trim off is what's beyond the add a quarter. So let me go ahead and get a rotary cutter and do that. Make sure we have our cutting surface on there and not our light by itself. Don't want to cut into that. So there's the waste that we won't be using. And now we have a perfect 1/4 inch seam line there to get started. So now all you have to do is iron this down and then proceed on with your next pieces. So number 3 will start here. You'll start right sides together and then fold it over and make sure that it's going to cover all of this plus a 1/4 inch. So I hope that helped you in getting started on your next section, the B section of the heart, and then on to other hearts or other foundation paper piecing patterns that you want to try. So since I started this project, I've already begun another foundation paper piecing project. So it's something that I'm really enjoying, so I think you will enjoy it too if you haven't started on this heart project yet. Alright, so today I promised you that we would talk about getting the papers off. And I was hoping I was going to have a handy dandy little tool to be able to do this with. Did not make it to me in the mail. But there is such a thing as a pen that looks about like your sew line pen, your glue pen, that holds water. And you can actually run the tip along your seam lines on your paper and soften your paper and pull it off that way. But since I didn't get that in the mail in time, wait, don't take off the paper yet. Trim all the way around all 4 sides to a 1/4 inch. What you need to do is just make sure that where your stitching lines are, that you're firmly grasping that before you rip your paper. So here I am ripping the paper along that seam line, and sometimes it will come off crooked and you'll have some little pieces hanging, you know, that didn't rip off neatly. Now you can take a pen, like a straight pen or needle, or any of your sewing tools really that are sharp, and just kind of poke each section and then start to rip that way. I say ripping in a soft sense because you don't want to just start ripping really hard. You might actually rip your stitches out. But we did use a small stitch length, so that should help a lot in holding our stitches in place. But just be careful when you're doing this. See, here's one that I just started on, didn't rip all the way, and I'll just keep working at it. And then if you have some of those little pesky pieces of paper in the seam line, you can take a pencil eraser and just kind of pull those out without pulling out your stitches. So very easy. You're just taking this paper off. It's not reused for anything. It's discarded after your block is ready to be constructed, the 2 sides put together. So let me go ahead and get my papers off here, and I'll show you how we're going to put these 2 pieces together. That was not fun. Oh, it only took about 10 minutes, but probably my least favorite part of the project. And I did use the FPP paper that's designed for this, so I'm hoping the next time I do one of these, I'll have my little water pen, and I will like that better, because picking it out by hand was not all that fun. So, as you can imagine, our two pieces are ready to go together, our A and our B chunks. All you have to do is put those together and run a 1/4 inch seam line all the way down the middle. And then, my friend, you are done. So I am going to do that, and I'm going to iron this seam open, and I'll be right back. Okay, here's my second block. These are 12 and a half inch blocks. Once they're sewn in, they will be 12-inch blocks. And one thing I would suggest doing is, if you're not going to use your blocks right away, and they may be stored for a time until you get your project better underway and you're actively using these, you might want to put a basting stitch a 1/4 inch away at this point. So just, doesn't matter what color thread or anything like that, it's something that's not going to show in your project, or at the worst you could pick it out. So just set your stitch length to 4 and sew all the way around a 1/4 inch, and that will hold all of your little pieces together around these edges. They're fine in the center, but the edges are a little vulnerable. So there are my 2 blocks that I have done so far, and I'm getting ready to make another one, and it will coordinate with these 2, and my goal is to make 4 for a wall hanging. And stay tuned for future Finish It Friday episodes to see how this project eventually comes together. I'll be sharing that on one of those episodes coming up. So thank you so much for following along with me on this FPP project. I hope you learned a lot, and like for myself, it was a brushing up on that skill. It was something I had done in the past, but it had been a while and I wanted to get back into it, and I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you are too. Any questions or comments you want to leave below, feel free. If you need help or any other thing that you want to put down there, how you enjoyed the project, how you're going to put yours together, whatever you want to share down below in the comments, you're welcome to put anything you want down there. All right, thank you so much again, and we will see you on Finish It Friday. Bye.